All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining my video. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic, the fundamentals of weight loss. Now, my handwriting is not the best, but I have written some stuff up here. It'll help me refer to some things, not forget anything, and if you've got really good vision, you can check it out for yourself. So I've worked with a lot of people that have struggled to lose weight and struggled to lose body fat. And I personally have a holistic approach to helping people lose weight. That way they normally feel a lot better, and they have other really good positive effects as well, such as, improved digestion, improved energy, a lot of other pain goes away. So I personally teach a holistic approach which focuses on, the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of the person. So today we're going to predominantly go through some of the physical stuff, what you can do physically, and we're going to dive a little bit into the psyche, but that's a really deep topic that I've done a few videos on, and I'll continue to produce some content on as well. Okay, so the first one I want to cover is nutrition. So just here, nutrition, and I'll put down 2 dot points for every principle that I have up here. So I've got 6 principles in total, and I learned that from my study through the CHEK Institute, C-H-E-K Institute, excellent institute for holistic health information. So first one being nutrition. Now, probably the mainstream thought is, essentially calorie counting. Now, I haven't seen that work that well over the long term for people. I can only really think of one instance where it's actually worked for someone long term, where there doesn't seem to be any side effects, and I'm really happy for that person. But the large majority of time, it's very hard to maintain, and your body and your hunger hormones just scream at you to throw on, just to have this food, and we need to understand why that's the case. So anytime you start cutting your calories, you start skipping meals, it can facilitate the production of something called lipogenic enzymes. Now, an enzyme is a catalyst for a biochemical reaction. So if you're skipping meals, you will produce lipogenic enzymes, which is essentially a catalyst, and a lipogenic enzyme is built to help you store body fat. So when you start skipping meals, you start releasing these enzymes that can encourage you to start storing body fat. So I personally encourage people to eat, a combination of carbohydrates, protein, and fat that suits their particular constitution, their individual type, and also the regularity of meals to suit their particular constitution as well. I've found everyone's really different with that. So personally, I have to have, 3 main meals and 2 snacks per day. But some people can get along with, 2 or 3 meals a day, no problem. So that's on the nutrition side. So we spoke about bio-individuality being, everyone's very, very different. And the fact that calorie counting, in my opinion, and it's a very controversial one, I think that's very hard to maintain long-term and can even cause other damage. So on hydration, so we want to make sure we're having enough hydration. Water is definitely the best. Herbal teas have some remarkable benefits as well. But we want to make sure we're getting enough. So the adequate amount to get is 0.033 times your body weight. So if you weigh 100 kilograms, that would be 0.033 times 100 kilograms would be 3.3 liters per day. Now, that can actually fluctuate from season to season, summer to winter. Also fluctuates with level of activity. So probably a little bit more water, especially if you're exercising in the summer, than that measurement I just gave you. So what does that help with in terms of weight loss? So if you're having enough water, your hunger hormones won't mistake thirst for hunger, which can happen. So if you're not having much water, you can gravitate more towards food because food has water in it. Like it's predominantly made up of water, especially like really watery foods like a watermelon or something like that. So it can actually help with satiety levels, and that's the word that I wrote there. It can also really help with detoxification. So if you want to lose body fat, you need to be able to detox that out properly, and you need to have enough water to do that. Water is our chief detoxification agent. It facilitates that really, really well. So if you want to detox body fat, adequate amounts of water are really, really important. Okay, so that's nutrition and hydration. We're going through some pretty big principles here, but I just want to give you some tips, some practical tips to take away and try it for yourself. Okay, the next tip would be sleep. So an adequate amount of sleep. Now, while you're sleeping, you release something called human growth hormone, and that can facilitate a fat burning process. Also facilitates you releasing testosterone, helps you build muscle, and helps you break down and process fat. Okay? And around about 75% of your human growth hormone is released while you're sleeping. Now, for an adult, you want to aim for anywhere between 7 to 9 hours per night. It can also, if you're short of sleep, it can actually disrupt your hunger hormones. So what's happening there? If you're averaging, say, 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, your body is going to want to gravitate to normally more carbohydrates, but let's just call it food in general, to keep itself energized, because it's really lacking energy. So if your sleep is off, it can really throw off your hunger hormones. Now, what are the main reasons for people not getting a good night's sleep? I'd say there's probably 3 main reasons I come across. So the first one would be stress, would probably be the main one, where cortisol, a stress hormone, is pumping high, and it's suppressing another hormone called melatonin, which is your sleep regulation hormone. And it's it's just very hard for people to get a good night's sleep when they're pumping a lot of stress. The second one would be just poor nutrition, poor quality nutrition, poor timing of foods for their particular constitution. Like I mentioned before, everyone's got a different constitution. But if you're having enough regular meals and snacks for your individual type and the right amount of carbohydrate, protein, fat for your individual type, that will help you keep a really balanced blood sugar level, and you'll be able to get a good night's sleep normally. The third thing would be boundaries. So many people don't have good boundaries on themselves. They'll stay up watching late night television, or they won't have good boundaries on other people. So people will push them around, and that person will sacrifice their sleep to try and please everyone. Really classic example is, parents helping their kids with homework, is what I see. Okay, so that's around sleep. Next one would be movement. So when you're exercising, you release something called lipolytic enzymes. So almost like the opposite of what I mentioned before, lipogenic, you're now going to release lipolytic, which is helping you break down fats. When you're exercising, also really good for detoxification. You're getting a lot of fluids pumping, that really, really helps. And you also release, muscle building hormones. And when you're building the muscle building hormones, the calories go more towards the muscle building and sort of further away from the body fat. Now, a lot of people don't like going to the gym, and that's perfectly understandable. So what I encourage people to start with is just do what you enjoy. That's the exercise you're gonna do regularly. You're gonna have your happy hormones pumping because you really enjoy it. So that's a really good place to start. Okay, so we've done 4 so far. So we've done our nutrition, hydration, sleep, movement. The next one, the fifth one, the fifth foundation, fifth pillar, whatever you like to call it, is I've called it here the psyche. In other videos before, I've called it thoughts. Today I've referred to it as psyche, so I want to capture everything, okay? So the whole psyche. So this is a really big black box, and I personally love working with it with people, and it's almost completely missed when it comes to weight loss in a lot of different modalities. But it is probably the main contributing factor I personally see. So if you're pumping high stress consciously or even subconsciously, you might not even be aware of it. If you're pumping high stress, specifically cortisol through a process called gluconeogenesis will tap into your protein stores in your body and then convert that into sugar, And if that's not used, it will store it as body fat. And people are pumping such high cortisol, you can in no way use that much sugar essentially, and it just gets stored as body fat. And the body might be doing that for a number of reasons. Like I said, it could be conscious stress, it could be subconscious stress, and there might be something deeper going on there, like wanting to protect yourself, or if you come from an abusive background, you might be walking around day to day thinking you're always going to get abused subconsciously, and that's pumping high stress. There's just many factors to what might be contributing to your cortisol going really high. Now, I personally run laboratory tests for people that are interested to check cortisol, and it's been really interesting. I've done it a few times where people are like, look, Mark, I'm just not stressed. I know what you're saying with the cortisol and the body fat, but I'm personally not stressed. I've got no more stress than anyone else, day to day, work a little bit, family a little bit. And then when I've shown them their cortisol reading is completely off the charts, that it's been a really good eye-opener, and all of a sudden we've been able to dive deeper into what's going on in the psyche. So some examples I kind of touched on before, but I will just go on again, could be, if you've come from an abusive background, which could be verbal, physical, or even not being heard, I think is another form of abuse, or that's at least perceived by the person. Now, all of a sudden, you're walking around your adult body and you're thinking these things are happening, or subconsciously on the lookout for these kind of things, that can produce a cortisol response. If you've been hurt in any way and you want to put a protective barrier between you and the rest of the world, that can produce a cortisol response, and you've now got your protective barrier physically. Okay, so that's probably all I'll touch on there around that. So it's mainly around the cortisol release, which can also actually go ahead and disrupt many other hormones, especially in females. It can really disrupt that progesterone, estrogen balance. Okay, next one and last one is our breathing pattern, and I'll just touch on this briefly. So if we have an inverted breathing pattern or a disrupted breathing pattern, it can start to throw a stress response in your body. So what is a good breathing pattern? Well, while you're relaxed and in a normal state, it's essentially about 2/3 of your breath coming through your belly, okay? And 1/3 coming through your chest, kind of at the end of the breath. So if that's happening naturally, or if you want to lie down on the ground and kind of test yourself, am I able to do that? Then you potentially have a pretty good breathing pattern. If you've got a good breathing pattern, it will also help with detoxification, so detoxing out your body fat. And 70% of our detoxification actually comes through our breath. So, we breathe around about, it's anywhere between sort of 25,000 breaths per day. And that's why so much detoxification comes from there. About 20% comes through our skin, and about 10% comes through urine or any kind of defecation. So the big kicker to all these kind of things is that they're all interlinked in some way. So let's just take an example, sleep. So, if your nutrition's off, hydration's off, not exercising that much, you're pumping high stress, then all of a sudden your sleep will be thrown off. So you really need to kind of balance all these really, really well. I'll just pick another one at random. Let's just say, you're not eating that well. If you're not eating that well, that can definitely throw off your sleep. You can definitely, your level of movement will be adjusted, because you're kind of like, you might not have the resources to do really good exercise. It will throw off your psyche, it will throw off your breathing pattern. Processed sugar can throw off a breathing pattern. And then also, if you're overeating, then you probably won't be drinking that much. So they're kind of all interlinked, and it's all a balancing act. It can be hard and a little bit overwhelming to kind of master all these things. But one step at a time, implementing slowly, and you'll start seeing some benefits. So, they're my little tips on weight loss. It's a very short, sharp video. I've done lectures on this over an hour and a half before, so you can definitely go into this in more depth. But I just wanted to give you some practical tips to take away, and I really hope that's helpful. So if you'd like any help, feel free to get in touch. I've helped many people with this stuff, or feel free to ask me any questions. Be happy to help out, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.